Jonathan, good evening. What do you make of this? Obviously, the special counsel, it's kind of like the Empire Strikes Back, refiling another indictment here.
Yeah, it's the shrinkflation indictment. It's the same packaging, just less product inside. And what they did is kept the four charges, and they just took out any evidence that clearly would have contradicted the Supreme Court's decision on presidential immunity. It does not hold together, in my view, very well. I don't even think it solves the problem. For example, he's keeping in, as one of the four main allegations, Trump's communications with and to Pence. That's still presumptively protected under the Supreme Court decision. He also includes communications with members of Congress. That could also trip a wire. The first two main theories deal with state officials and the slates, the alternative slates that Trump's team was pushing. So he doesn't really get out of the problem that so many still see with this. What's also interesting, Brett, is he keeps the charges of obstruction of official proceedings. There was a second case, the Fisher case, that dramatically narrowed how prosecutors can bring that charge. They have to essentially allege tampering of evidence or destruction of evidence. It's not clear how he's going to thread that needle on those charges.
Yeah.
As if things couldn't possibly get worse for the fledgling Kamala campaign, now this! An utterly desperate Jack Smith throws out a new indictment that's even worse and more pathetic than the previous one that the Supreme Court shot down. We're going to see what's really going on behind the scenes here and why this superseding indictment is turning out to be Kamala's worst nightmare. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, before we get into Jack Smith jumping the shark here, I want you all to click on that link below and begin taking care of your own health. Many of you know I'm very passionate about the fact that we cannot rescue our nation if we don't first take care of ourselves. And health actually starts with our livers. I mean, think about it. Our poor livers. We throw everything that we ingest at our livers. And that's why so many of us suffer from a fatty liver that makes us gain weight, lose energy. But thanks to today's sponsor, there's a very real solution to that. Liver Health Formula is an all-natural supplement. It contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA and improved by independent American doctors. And if you click on that link below right now, gang, you could try Liver Health Formula, and you're going to receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive. You know, this is personal for me, right? I myself recently lost over 60 pounds, and I could say it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So now it's your turn. Click on that link below or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley and claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley. The self-anointed defenders of democracy strike again. Yesterday afternoon, special counsel Jack Smith filed what's called a superseding indictment against President Trump. A superseding indictment is simply a second one after the first one gets dismissed. It's a new indictment that's several pages shorter than the original one, precisely because Smith had to omit so much evidence due to the Supreme Court's presidential immunity ruling. That's basically stripped him of any case. As it turns out, this one is even more pathetic. It's even weaker than the previous one, if that were even possible. Trump's response to this travesty, of course, was absolute fire. He tweeted out, "It is DOJ policy that the Department of Justice should not take any action that will influence an election within 60 days of that election, but they just have taken such action. Voting starts on September 6th. Therefore, the DOJ has violated its own policy. Election interference. All of these Comrade Kamala Biden hoaxes should be immediately dismissed." Dismissed! And he's absolutely right. This is blatant election interference on the part of the Justice Department. And ironically, it's an interference that's working the other way. It's frankly the greatest gift Trump could be given right now. I mean, let's just be blunt here. I'm just going to say this up front. This was the very last thing that Kamala would have wanted to happen today. This indictment. This is the very last thing that the fledgling Kamala campaign would want to happen. Somehow, some way, Jack Smith did not get the memo that Alvin Bragg got, right? Just days ago, the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, conceded that the New York court should postpone the sentencing of Trump, which is currently scheduled to occur on September 18th, until after the election. Bragg admitted that in light of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling, much of the evidence that he introduced into the court has been in effect wiped out. And so he agreed, he's recommending that sentencing for Trump be postponed until after the election. And everyone who saw that recognized that Bragg was actually admitting that the lawfare they used to try to take Trump out was a total and complete failure. That letter from Bragg to the Manhattan judge was a blatant admission. It was a confession that the weaponized lawfare has boomeranged against them. It's an admission that the only thing this campaign of weaponized legalism has accomplished was a massive backlash of sympathy towards Trump. That is what this caving from Bragg represents. It doesn't have a whit to do with his concern over a right application of the law and justice and fairness. What a total crock. This letter was a full-on retreat. Now, if that's the case, then there does appear to be a conflict within the political class on how best to deal with a surging Trump. Bragg decided to drop the whole darn thing, quit while you're behind, as it were, whereas Jack Smith seems to be doubling down on stupid, doing more of the same, the very definition of insanity. So there does seem to be a very real clash within the permanent political class on how best to deal with a surging Trump and a collapsing Kamala. And that is actually what both Bragg and Smith appear to agree on. That the one thing they agree on, they're both admitting in their own contradictory ways that Trump is absolutely poised to win this election. Again, just as a reminder, Trump has never been in such a strong position to win the White House ever. Not even close. Not in 2016, not in 2020, as he is right now. Trump is more popular today than he's ever been, and they obviously don't trust Kamala to get the job done. But regardless, make no mistake, this superseding indictment is the last thing the fledgling Kamala campaign wanted, because all it's going to do now is give voters more of a reason to galvanize around Trump. I mean, take a look at Nicole Shanahan's tweet here. Robert Kennedy's VP candidate. Take a look at what she just tweeted out, literally within hours in response to the sham indictment. Quote, "I'll admit, I used to kind of roll my eyes when people claimed that President Trump was being, quote, persecuted. It's because I was looking at it through the distorted filter of the media. Well, I just completed my first cross-examination in our second New York ballot access case, where the DNC-aligned PAC attorneys questioned me like a criminal. Okay, I get it now. Our justice system is clearly being co-opted and abused by nefarious people with malevolent political agendas. This superseding indictment is yet another reason for people like Nicole to galvanize around Trump. Remember, Trump himself said he was just one indictment away from winning the White House. Every time he's indicted, his polls go up. Every time. We talked about this from the vantage point of political demographics. Whether anyone likes it or not, indictments endear Trump to non-white working class voters. Indictments endear Trump to non-white working class voters. And the reason for that is simple. Roll the tape.
I've talked to many people who formerly identified as a Democrat. They have changed their political persuasion to independent, and they are looking forward to voting for Trump. Wow. Because now they find something in common with a political candidate at that level.
When you say they find commonality, what is that commonality?
They have felt persecuted by the system of American injustice. And it's not a stretch for them to think that Trump may be a victim as well. People see that there's some kind of commonality between himself and maybe all the black men that have been incarcerated and the families that have been impacted by black male incarceration.
So there you have it. For millions of particularly non-white working class voters, Trump's indictments, and particularly that mugshot, made him instantly one of them. Voters who have consistently voted Democrat are now voting Trump almost solely based on the fact that that image made him one of them. And again, you don't have to think too hard as to why. If you ask non-white voters, how many New York billionaire former presidents do you know, right? The answer, of course, is 0. But if you ask them, how many people do you know that have been abused by the law, who've been abused by a rigged legal system? Well, that's different. They know plenty. At some point in their lives, they know plenty of people who've been arrested for nefarious reasons. In other words, and this is what Robert Barnes likes to say, that mugshot transferred Trump from one cultural space, the New York billionaire former president, to another cultural space, someone legally persecuted by an unfair and unjust rigged system. And that transference has endeared Trump to voters that would never have given him the time of day prior to it. So obviously, this move by Jack Smith was actually the last thing that this fledgling Kamala campaign wanted. They did not want to give yet another excuse for voters to rally around Trump. First, you had the Kennedy realignment, then the Tulsi Gabbard, a former DNC chair endorsing Trump. It's taking all this wind out of the sails of the convention, which was supposed to give Kamala a double-digit bump. She literally got nothing from it. In fact, her polls went down. Her polls went down as the week progressed. Trump's polls went up, and her polls went down. All the momentum is swinging to Trump, and the last freaking thing that Kamala needed was Jack Smith to climb out from under his rock and give people another excuse and another reason to rally around Trump. Make no mistake. This was the last thing Kamala wanted, because now it's only going to further galvanize voters around Trump, which means that when Trump wins in a total blowout in November, ironically, we'll largely have Jack Smith to thank.